You're listening to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guest. And I got to tell you something, people. 5 years ago, when I was in L.A., I did a little bit of acting here and there, and I answered a casting call. Someone sent it to me, and it said they were looking for people who could look like the News from Huey Lewis and the News. And I had a headshot with a cool hat and glasses, and I looked hip, so I sent it in, and they picked me. So I got chosen. I went on the Ellen DeGeneres show, and we had this scene where in the very beginning she had said how she had her posse. So she called out Selena Gomez came out, Carrot Top came out, the girls from Fuller House came out, and then she goes, I also hang out with musicians. Huey Lewis and the News? I hang out with the News. And 4 of us walked out dressed exactly like the picture they had given, and the crowd went nuts because I think they actually thought we were the News because they were very young. Now, when I did that interview, I never thought that, 5 years later, I'd be interviewing one of the original members of the News, who was over there for 20 years. He was a guitarist, and my guest is Chris Hayes. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. So I want to ask you. I was reading up on you, and it said you started playing guitar at 9, and you're from a family where there's 7 kids, and a lot are musicians. Where did you fit in the age group? Like, were you middle child, or where were you?
I have 2 older sisters, and I've got 1 younger sister. I'm the oldest boy, and I've got 3 younger brothers. So we have 7 kids in our family. So I'm the oldest boy with 2 older sisters.
Now, were your older sisters involved in music?
Yes, my oldest sister Bonnie Hayes is a songwriter and worked with Billy Idol and a couple of she wrote a bunch of songs for Bonnie Raitt, and she is now the songwriting chair at Berklee School of Music in Boston. So yeah, she was really and then she had her own band for years and stuff. And then my other sister Roseanne, she plays guitar and sings a little bit and plays in the church and stuff like that. So.
Now, were they an influence on why you picked up guitar at a young age?
No, actually, what happened there was my dad was a doctor and a piano player, and he used to play a lot of classical music in the house. He was a pretty good pianist, actually, and he was into classical and jazz music. So he was always playing like Dave Brubeck, and he was way into Brubeck and bossa nova type stuff. And then he played a lot of Bach and a lot of Beethoven. So I was hearing that a lot. And then of course he made us all take piano lessons at a pretty young age. So I started out on piano. And I really liked it, but when I was in 2nd grade, I went to an assembly, and there was a kid there that came out and played for us. I think he might have been in 4th or 5th grade. He was one of the older kids. He might have been in 6th. I don't know how old he was, but anyway, it was elementary school. And he comes up on stage. He's got a red electric guitar with a curly cord, and he had kind of long hair. And I went, whoa. I think that's me. I think that's who I want to be. You know what I mean? I just went, okay, that's definitely something that I'm attracted to. So I begged my mom and dad to buy me a guitar.
Now,
and they kind of took their time. I didn't get it till the next year. They were still forcing us to take piano lessons, but they finally relented and bought me an electric guitar and an amplifier. And, that from then on out, it was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I love this. This is fun. So that's kind of how all that happened.
Now, when did you start? Did you start from the beginning playing jazz guitar? Because I heard you played jazz and folk in the beginning, which for a 9-year-old, that seems pretty, I know you listen to it, but that seems pretty old. I mean, that seems very precocious.
Yeah, I don't know. I started out playing folk music, real, folky kind of, campfire type stuff. When I was a kid, I didn't really get into jazz until I was in high school, really. But I did hear a lot of jazz around the house. Like I said, my dad was really into Brubeck, and he was into Miles Davis and stuff. So I was listening to a lot of jazz, even though I didn't know. It was just sort of going into my mind through my ears, and I wasn't really aware of what was happening there. But when you're starting out on guitar, you learn all those, campfire songs and stuff.
Now, when you were in high school, did you join the marching band or any of the bands or orchestras, or did you start your own bands?
Well, when I got into school, I realized that the music classes didn't really have anything for guitar players. I mean, at that time, I'm born in 1957. I'm 62 years old right now. So, back in the 60s, they didn't really have much in terms of guitar music classes. It was all band music, and I wasn't really interested in band music. I liked guitar stuff. So I kind of was forced to, I did go to a music school when I was a troubled teen. My mom sent me to music school, and that kind of saved my life a little bit. It kind of got me out of some of the bad stuff that I was doing back then. And then, so I did go to music school there, but in school itself, no, there really wasn't much there for me. Although my senior year of high school, I did teach the guitar class. So that was fun, because my senior year was like the easiest year ever in high school. I had guitar class, weight training, civics, and it was, and ceramics. It was like, and then I'd leave at like 12:30 and take the bus over to Blue Bear School of Music over out in the Avenue in the Sunset District out there, and teach guitar lessons. So I had a pretty good senior year. It was pretty sweet.
So when you get out of high school.
Yeah.
When do you decide that you're going to make music your career, and how do you go about it?
Well, while I was in high school, I also had a band with my sister and my brother. My brother is a drummer, and he used to play with Robert Cray, and he played with B.B. King and a bunch of other, Etta James, all kinds of people. He's like a blues drummer. And so I had a band with my brother and my sister Bonnie and myself and Tony Saunders, who's Merle Saunders' son, Frank Holder, who's a Filipino percussionist, a guy named Jimmy Nadell, who's a saxophone player. He does the Stanford Jazz Workshop now, and see who else is in the band. And there was a guy named Van Bailey. At one time we had two percussionists, and we had to let one of them go. So, but it was fun. We had a good time with that. So I did that when I was in high school, in my junior and senior year. And coincidentally, we actually opened up a couple of shows for Huey. It was in Clover at that time. We opened up a show for them at the Lion's Share in San Anselmo when I was still in high school. Of course, I didn't really meet them or anything. We just opened up the show for them. I don't think they could be bothered with their little high school band, thing. But we opened up one show for Soundhole, I think, and then, or maybe it was just the one show that we did with them. It was maybe Soundhole and Clover, and then us opening. So there was a show where I actually opened up for my future bandmates, which was kind of interesting. I think I was maybe a junior in high school at that time. So
that is pretty wild. Now, did you go over to Europe to play for a while too?
Well, sort of. I went on the road with. I used to play in a band with Dave Liebman and Pee Wee Ellis. I don't know if you know who those guys are.
Mm-mm.
Dave Liebman is a jazz saxophone player. He played with Miles Davis and Elvin Jones. He's a really good tenor saxophone player from New York. And then Pee Wee Ellis is also a great tenor saxophone player, played with James Brown for years and George Benson, and he wrote Cold Sweat. So he's like, just an amazing saxophone player, played with James Brown for years, So I played in a band with them, and we ended up, we were together for about a year or so in the States. We did an album and stuff. And then after that band sort of dissolved, Pee-wee hired me to go on the road with him because he was the music director for Esther Phillips. I don't know if you remember who she was, but she had a song called "What a Difference a Day Makes."
Okay.
It was kind of a disco song in the '70s, and she did a tour of Europe. So that was the first time I ever got to Europe. I think I was maybe 19 or 20 or something like that.
So now
yeah.
So you played in Europe and you played with her. Now you
Yeah.
you come back to the States. How does Huey Lewis and the News form? I mean, how do you meet them? And it's just, you're right, it's crazy that you played for Clover and Soundhole, and I'm guessing Clover was a pretty big Bay Area band. How did you meet them?
Well, I was living in an apartment with my good friend Don Moss, who's a bass player, and we had a band together for years, and he was a jazz guy, and we were living in this apartment in Marin, and Huey used to come to the neighbor's house. He was friends with the neighbors that lived next door to us. So that's how the lady that lived next door said, "Hey, this guy Huey is looking for a guitar player. Or do you want to try out for his band?" And at that time, I was looking for all kinds of. I needed work, So I was like, "Yeah, I want to try out for his band." I was already in about 3 or 4 bands already, but I said, "Yes, definitely, I want to try out for his band." So I went and tried out, and then that's how I met those guys. I just went and because they were looking for a guitar player.
So you join them, and what's your course of action now? You're in the band. Do you have a recording contract in place, or did you guys have to start going to the clubs? I mean, did Huey have connections from his Clover days, or were you guys just going from scratch, going head on, saying, "We're going to do this"?
Well, I think Huey had just gotten off of some. They had made an album in England. They went to England to try to become famous over there, and I guess they had a modicum of success over there, but it wasn't anything that they could bring back over to the States. So they came back, and Huey wanted to form another band. So basically what happened was we kind of did a bunch of club stuff, and gradually over the course of a few months, we ended up getting a management contract with Bob Brown, who managed Pablo Cruz, and then shortly thereafter he negotiated a record deal with us. And so when we got the management contract, it allowed us to just focus. It allowed me, for example, and for a couple other guys in the band, to be able to just focus on that band and not have to do other jobs. So we were on a little bit of a salary from Bob, and then we just kind of exclusively worked with the Huey Lewis. At that time, it was called. We were going with American Express. That was the name we wanted, but that didn't work out for us because I don't think American Express wanted that.
They'd be like, "Wait a second, guys! No, come on! It'd be great for you guys because don't leave home without it. They'd be buying your album." But
yeah.
So how I know you through the career with the band, you did writing. A bunch of you guys wrote. When did you start your writing relationship with Huey? Was it your first album, or was it when you got to the second album? When did you start?
No, it was right away. I remember, we used to have these writing sessions over at Johnny's apartment in Novato, and we went up there the first time I went up there, and they had a couple of songs that we were going to put on this demo, right? And we're learning the songs, and I'm thinking, shoot, I'm a pretty good songwriter. I can write songs. And I said, hey, I can write songs too. And they were like, okay, great. So, it wasn't until we actually got the record deal, and the first record, which was on Chrysalis, that's when I started writing. And Huey liked to write all the lyrics, so I was just writing music. So it was fun. It was great. I ended up writing, I don't know, I can't remember how many songs on that first album, maybe 3 or 4 songs or something like that. So that was really cool for me. Being 22 years old, I'm thinking, shoot, this is great. I get to write songs and got the songs on the album and stuff. And, that first album didn't do any. We only sold 50,000 copies or something, but it's a great album.
Now your second album,
yeah,
put you guys more in the spotlight. Well, and I think maybe because you as they say, you had a little bit of a different sound. When you were writing for that sound, because it is, like the guitar, it's not, and it's a bigger group. How do you write all the parts? Like when you write a song, do you write the sax parts, or do you just put in the writing, sax break? How do you go about writing for instruments that you personally don't play.
Well, we all kind of, arranging and writing are two different things. Arranging music is different than writing music. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So writing music is it's all about coming up with an idea. And arranging music is taking an idea and producing it and arranging it and arranging those parts. So what we used to do is, the writers, got credit for writers, and that's what the way that it works. And then arranging wise, we all kind of pitched in and arranged it. So and most of the time with parts and stuff, unless like a lot of times I might have an idea for a keyboard part, and I'd say, hey, Sean, what do you think about this? And you can go, great, yeah, that's pretty okay, but I think it needs to be a little better or something. Right. You know what I mean? So and keyboard players, he was obviously a much better keyboard player than I was. So he would, come up with the part that he wanted to play. Same thing with the horns, and Johnny liked to arrange horns and stuff like that. So that was kind of what he liked to do.
So
and then,
So you're writing the songs, and then now Picture This comes out, and I think it was pretty much MTV was big then, and everyone remembers the video. Do You Believe in Love? That's where you guys' heads are in the sand the whole time. And
oh no, that's it. That's it. This is it.
That's it. Okay, that's it. I'm sorry, I got them confused. Did MTV, like, you're right, because Working for a Living was stripped down. It was more of a piece. What was it like for you guys to shoot a video, and was it perfect timing for you because MTV basically really propelled a lot of bands forward?
Yeah, that was the cool thing about, and probably one of the things that really helped us in our career was the fact that MTV was just starting out, and also that the first single on the second album, "Do You Believe in Love," written by Mutt Lange, the producer guy. Who did work with AC/DC and
right.
Def Leppard and Shania Twain and all. He's a great producer and a great songwriter. He wrote "Do You Believe in Love," so that song pretty much got us on the map, and then got us on the Parallel 1 stations, and it was sort of a minor. It was a top 10 hit. It wasn't a number 1, but it was. I think it went to number 6 or something like that. And so consequently, we had to do a video for that. And the guy that was at KFRC at the time was a guy named Les Garland, and he's the guy that started MTV. He was familiar with us because he was the program director at KFRC, which was the local station in San Francisco, the Parallel 1 station. So he kind of got us on, got us into the MTV thing, in a lot of ways. Because he knew who we were and he was willing to play the thing, and that I think made a big difference. Just being on MTV obviously helped a lot. And then of course we made a few other videos on that second album.
Now the video. Yeah. What was the video process like then? I know, like, a lot of times I've always heard that you did a video, your band started getting very big, which you guys were one of the biggest bands in the world. When that happens, all of a sudden the record companies would want to bring in a different director and be a higher budget. I mean, did you notice that when you guys were starting out? Like, because you have "Do You Believe in Love" is popular, so all of a sudden there's someone you can bank in. But it seems like they always wanted to charge the band for the video, and they upped the price.
Yeah, it was. I didn't really pay a lot of attention to all that stuff. I was just, I was pretty young and I couldn't be bothered with all that stuff. But yeah, it was, to me, videos were sort of a pain in the ass. I didn't really enjoy making them all that much because, our part as band members really were, we'd have to sit around and wait for our shots to come up. And a lot of the shots were Huey shots, and then there was whatever incidental storyline that you know what I mean? So anybody that has done any sort of film production knows that it's really pretty tedious, It's not really all that much fun. But that being said, they, the record company, I don't know, they did whatever they did. I didn't really pay much attention to the financials of it, so I couldn't really speak to that, you know what I mean?
Now you guys are getting bigger. Now, do you remember the first time you heard one of your songs on the radio?
I do. Yeah, it was great. I do remember that. It wasn't my song, but the first time that I heard "Do You Believe in Love" on the radio was pretty interesting, because I was driving across the Golden Gate Bridge, and I was driving in my green VW, which was pretty beat up, you know. And I'm driving across the Golden Gate Bridge, and right when I went through the toll booth, "Do You Believe in Love" comes on the radio, and I go, "Oh, whoa, this is awesome." And it was on KFRC, you know, and I was listening to KFRC, and just before that, they had played Pablo Cruz's "What You Gonna Do When You Say Goodbye." You know that song?
Right,
Remember
yeah.
that one? Yeah. And then you know, shortly thereafter, they played "Do You Believe in Love," and I'm like, all right, we're almost as big as Pablo Cruz now. This is really great. You know, it was kind of funny, you know, looking back on it. But I was pretty excited because you know, we thought Pablo Cruz was pretty sweet, and they're all great guys and everything. And they were really nice to us and everything. But yeah, it was pretty cool.
Now, what was it like for you? You guys, you know, you're hearing yourself on the radio. You're getting your own MTV. You're a young guy. I mean, you're getting these accolades early. How does it change your life? And do people start recognizing you because of MTV?
Well, yeah, that happened a little bit later when the third album came out, and we made a bunch of videos on that record. Then I actually became famous just because I was in the videos, which was really weird for me. Because before that, on that second album, people really didn't pay that much attention to me. But on that third record, that was when we, Sports, when we had that was a pretty big album. And so when that happened, and when we went on the road, and they started playing those videos in heavy rotation, I remember we used to go like to the malls and stuff, and teenage girls would recognize us, which was really weird. I mean, because all of a sudden, you go from nobody knowing who the hell you are to girls following you around the mall, and giggling. It was pretty weird, I gotta say. And then it for a while there, it was really, I mean, it was pretty intense, for a couple of years there, and then it sort of started to wane a little bit. But yeah, Sports and 4 during that period, it was, there was definitely some notoriety going on.
Now, how is it, because as you said, your albums kept getting bigger after the second one. How did your touring change? Did you go from, when you picture this, what kind of venues you were playing, and then as the next album came out, with Sports, were your venues getting bigger? How long did it take you to go from the smaller places to all of a sudden headlining big places?
Yeah, that was pretty interesting the way that all happened, because the second album we did a college tour and colleges and clubs, and toured a lot on that Working for a Living tour, which was the second album. So we toured our guts out on that one. And then the third album, they released Heart and Soul, which was another song that was written by somebody else. It was written by Nick Chapman and Mickey Chin, who wrote some stuff for Pat Benatar and what's her name? I can't remember her name. Oh, Mickey, what a pity.
Oh, Tony Basil.
Tony Basil. Thank you. Yeah. So anyway, those guys wrote Heart and Soul, right? And that went number one. And at that time, we were opening up for 38 Special. And we did a tour with Loverboy, and we did a tour with 38 Special, and opening up for them. So when we started that tour with 38 Special, that was when they released Heart and Soul. By the end of that tour, which was about a month long, people were starting to, they were starting to sing the song at the show, and I mean, people knew that song because it went to number one. So by the end of that month, they knew who we were, and they were singing along and everything. It was pretty intense. And then the next, and we were playing basketball arenas at that time, opening up for 38 Special, because they were pretty big back then. And then after that tour, immediately after that tour, we went on another tour and played all of those basketball arenas as headliners. Shortly thereafter, because we were trying to strike while the iron was hot, and so we ended up in a pretty short amount of time going from opening up for 38 Special to headlining those same venues, which were between 12 and 20,000 seaters, which was that part of it went pretty fast.
Now,
all the other stuff before that, we worked our guts out for 2 or 3 years, you know what I mean, playing nightclubs and stuff. So it wasn't like it was some sort of meteoric rise or anything, but that particular portion of it was pretty quick. Now, because of MTV and because of the fact that we had the #1 single on, and sports, blew up, and it was huge stuff.
Now, when you were touring, as you said, you went from opener to headliner very, quickly because you were getting very popular. Do you feel as a band member or as a band, do you feel a difference in energy from the crowd when you're the opener from the headliner? Because I would think as the opener, you got to sell yourself off the bat because they're there to see another band. But as a headliner, they're there to see you. How, as a performer, does that affect you, or doesn't it because it's still just a live show?
Well, if you're self-aware in any way, some people, there's awarenesses at different levels in human beings, So if some people, it doesn't bother them. They just go up there and they play and they have a great. But for me, I have to say that obviously, and probably for most people, it's better when people know your music and you are the headliner than it is to open a show. I mean, opening a show it's great. If you have some sort of notoriety and you get to open and then go backstage and drink and have a good time and let them finish, because actually it's better. I mean, you have a lot more fun. But when you're the headliner, you have to put on a show. You got to be there for, you got to play for a couple hours. So, you sort of have, it's a whole different thing. But it is energy-wise, it's a lot more fun when people have come to see you, obviously, than being the opening act. It's more fun.
Now, as you become bigger, I'm sure there's pressures on the band because your next album has to do well. What's the mind thought? Because after sports, it was huge. Everyone loved it. Then now you have to follow it. What's your mindset? Is it comparable to, like, let's say, a team that wins a Super Bowl that they feel they have to come back the next year and they put pressure on themselves? Or was it something where you guys said, you know what, we're clicking, this is going to be good, let's not put extra pressure on ourselves? Well,
yeah, I mean, there's always pressure when you're a writer in the band, and we just came off sports, for example, and then we go to record 4, and we got to come up with a bunch of songs. I mean, and more than 10, because you need 10 for the album. So we just started hammering it. And yeah, there was definitely some pressure to try to come up with something good and to keep the momentum going, because, nobody wants to just be a one-hit wonder type band. I mean, it's okay, but it's not as good as having some sort of longevity. So yeah, there was definitely some pressure to write some good material. So 4 actually was pretty decent in terms of its public acceptance, and we had a couple of good singles on there. And strangely, "Power of Love," our biggest song, wasn't never on any of our albums except for the greatest hits stuff. So because that one was with the movie, right?
Right.
So and it was never on any of the albums. So that was a little odd, because when 4 came out, we were recording for it. I think "Power of Love" came out after. I can't remember what the timeline was, but so yeah, that was a little odd. But there was definitely some pressure to do that. And then when we started working on the 5th record, it was more like, well, let's try something a little different. And I think that was sort of the beginning of where we may have lost some of the people that, I mean, not to say that it was a good record. I liked it, but I think that was when the thing started started maybe losing some of its momentum.
Well, you know what's weird is, when you sit there, like you said, start losing the momentum, and you like the album, and it is a good album.
Yeah.
But what's weird is, people, they get used to a certain sound, but they never take it into account that as musicians and as artists, you're growing. You know what I mean? It's like your views change, so you're like, you know what? We've done this. We want to branch off. But it's funny that people, only the fans, like your true fans, notice that, because you don't want to hear everything that sounds exactly the same, because you're like, okay, we've heard this before.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It cuts both ways. Some people just, and I understand people wanting to hear. They're nostalgic. People like comfort, and they like to hear things that sound like. They want the record to be similar to the last one, maybe a little bit different, but generally speaking, they kind of want the same sort of thing again. You know what I mean? And then, but the artist, on the other hand, is thinking, wow, we really got to try something different, blah, blah, blah. Depending on what level of that you're at, your personal preferences and such. But, it's kind of a funny thing that happens. And you see it happening where, it's not uncommon for the timeline to happen the way that it happened for us. So.
Well, now here's a question for you. When your albums were coming out, the earlier albums, as you said, some people you would write some songs and you would write some songs with Huey, and then other people would write songs that were not in the band. How did they get looped into the process? Because it seemed like you guys had the writing pretty well covered, because you all had writing ability. So it's like, why would the record company say, we want you to play this song? Or why would you bring in outside writers when you guys all had, it was obvious, very good writing chops?
Well, I guess, the whole thing was, there was always the idea that, hey, there's nothing wrong with bringing on, if somebody has a hit that we're pretty sure is going to be some sort of major hit, why not use it, right? I mean, because it could be the difference between, selling 1 million copies or not selling 1 million copies. You know what I mean? If you had a great single on an album, you could still have all the other songs on there. And, so I think that was the thinking behind that, really. And and also there is a little bit of pressure from the record company. They want a hit single. So if they don't hear one with the stuff that you have, they're going to want you to look elsewhere for material, and they're going to want to they're going to have people, or they're going to be maybe friends of friends in the band, or people that Huey know. You know what I mean? And then also you've got people sending stuff in. I mean, when you get to a point where you've started to sell some records, then people start sending music in hopes that you'll cover their song. So you get a lot of that. So you listen to it. That was part of our gig. We'd have to take a couple of demo tapes home and go through them and listen to demos.
Now, what's the feeling? What's the feeling when you have a number one hit? Is there a certain feeling like you're like, man, this is awesome, man. Everyone can kiss. Everyone can kiss my ass. We're number one. What is it like when you look at? Because then a lot of the younger listeners don't understand. Back then, it was Billboard. It wasn't online. You had the Billboard paper, and you opened it up, and you would see all the listing. And what is it like when you look at it and you're like, that's my band? I mean, what's the feeling you have? Is it like total accomplishment?
I'll tell you what. It's a big effing deal. It really is. It's huge. When that happens to you, I got to say, it's probably one of the best things. I mean, in terms of accomplishment, and we all like to accomplishing things and making dreams come true is an amazing thing. It's one of the best things that we do as human beings, right? That's what we do that makes us. Probably one of the greatest things that we do is that we get ideas and then we accomplish our goals and then we do something else. And if it wasn't for that, we'd all be sitting around in caves still.
Right.
That kind of shot of dopamine for your brain when something like that happens. It's like it's like taking a drug. I mean, it just makes you feel really, really good, except there's no downside really, except for I don't know. I mean, there is some downside, but it's a little more complex. And, if you start thinking that, so if you start believing what people are telling you about who you are or who they think you are.
Right.
I mean, you got to knock yourself down a little bit, right?
Now,
otherwise,
Now, that was, you had the number one hit. Now, what was it like playing on We Are the World? I mean, was that a real honor for you guys? Because your whole band played, I believe, and it's something that was such a great cause. How did that come about? Do you know?
It was like, I think that was like after I think it was the American Music Awards, if I'm not mistaken. And we had a year there in the American Music Awards where we were huge, and we did really well. We won a bunch of awards, and then after that American Music Awards show, they were doing that recording, and they invited us to come and sing. I mean, it was really just kind of because we were there at the American Music Awards. They invited everybody that was there. It was pretty cool. It really was. I mean, I don't know if they invited everybody, but they invited us, which was fantastic because I remember walking in the door and there's Bob Dylan and
right.
Stevie Wonder. You know what I mean? That was, to me, on that night, that was when I was looking around and just going, oh my God. Thank you, God.
Right.
I'm here. I think I'm here. I'm here with all these people that I idolize. They're just people, but here I am with them, and I'm doing this with them. I mean, it blew my mind, I gotta say. I mean, it really was an amazing thing, and yeah, we were lucky and blessed to have been allowed to go and do that. It was amazing. Michael Jackson, for God's sake. I'm in the bathroom. There's Michael Jackson taking a leak. I mean, it's pretty cool. I'm like, what the hell? This is great.
Yeah, you guys are so big. And is it hard to be in a band where there's the lead singer is very dynamic? People, I know he started doing movies. Does that make it easier for you guys because the pressure's not on you? Or what's it like when the Huey is just such a, charismatic figure? What is that? Does that make it easier for a band?
I think so. I mean, it did for me. It was great because as a side man, you can just sort of go along for the ride and you get all the benefits of being famous without actually having to be as famous, which is nice. It's actually a lot better. I mean, nowadays, I can go shopping at whatever grocery store I want. Nobody knows who the hell I am. Right. So and back then, I mean, yeah, there was a period when people knew who I was, but nowadays, I mean, I really would have to tell somebody, who I used to be. Nobody really cares anymore. So but that's okay. But back then, yeah, it was actually kind of nice because, he took a lot of the flack and a lot of the pressure off of all of us. We were just allowed to sort of go along for the ride, which was pretty cool.
Now after Small World, the next album was 3 years, the next album 3 years, and then the next album was 6 years, and you had already left the band by then, I believe. What was the delay in albums? Was it something that it was creative process, or you had other things going on, or what happened? Why did it take 3 years between each album? We were working a lot. We were going on the road and playing shows still. So, and then we after that the sixth album, which was Hard at Play or whatever. Right.
That was when we started doing corporate shows at that time. We used to go and play shows for like IBM, Toyota. They'd have their conventions or whatever, and they paid us a whole bunch of money, and we'd just go and play for them. And that was actually, I got to say, that was a lot of fun because I remember we stayed in Miami for 3 weeks and played like 4 shows for IBM in those 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. 4 shows a week. It was great.
Right.
You know, it was freaking awesome. That was the beginning of the whole corporate thing. With, you know, Michael Jackson sort of got everybody, you know, with that Pepsi deal that he did and all that. You know, that was kind of when all that stuff started. But, you know, that was kind of a nice period because we didn't have the pressure of going out on the road and filling arenas. You know, and the critics kind of didn't really like us all that much at that point. You know, the bloom was off the rose for them. You know, it was like we were starting to get panned for being, you know, whatever. I don't know. I don't really remember much of it because I didn't pay. I stopped reading all that stuff after the first few years.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned the corporate shows because, and I can't remember what year, but I lived in San Diego for 6 years before I lived in LA. So we're going back a while.
Yeah.
And I remember I lived in the Gaslamp district when it was just building up. And I used to smoke cigarettes, and I was on our balcony smoking a cigarette, and it was when the convention center was just building up, and you guys were playing there. Because I remember sitting there going, what the hell? I'm like, there's nothing. And I'm like, that sounds like Huey Lewis the News. And I could hear you from our place. And it was so cool. And then someone said later, I believe it was a corporate gig you did.
Yeah. I remember doing a couple corporates down there in San Diego. Yeah. So, you know, I think that's the reason why, you know, we did that 6th album at Skywalker. And you know, after that one came out, I don't really remember. After that, there was a long period of time when we didn't do an album. I think that was our last Chrysalis album, I think, or that was when Chrysalis got sold to EMI or whatever it was, right?
Right.
There was some record company crap going on, or we weren't on Chrysalis anymore. We ended up signing with EMI, and then you know, it was like there was a bunch of stuff going on that was kind of out of our control, and you know, and then we did that 4 Chords and Several Years Ago album, and that didn't do all that well. It was fun, but it was like, and then at that point, I think that was, you know, that was it. But you know, we still made the other record, which is a pretty good record. It's just that, you know, when you reach a certain point in your career, you're not going to be selling records like, I mean, even the Rolling Stones don't sell that many records, and they're freaking huge. Right. You know what I'm saying? They don't, when they make a record, they don't even need to bother even doing that. They go out on the road. That's where most of these people are making all their money now also, because especially now with the streaming and the way the record business is going now, you know, people are making all their money on the road. That's where they make their money.
So after, you know, you left in 2000, I believe. First of all, when you did, what was the reason when you decided to leave? Because, you know, we all say, oh, being a rock star is so cool, but it has to take a toll on you with all the travel. I mean, it's you know, people don't understand, like, oh yeah, but you're traveling, you know, in a big bus, but it's like you're still traveling. You're still constantly having, I mean, it takes a lot of energy. Did it just burn you out? Or is it just something that, you know, you saw the music scene going differently? Or did you just get tired of constantly touring?
Well, you know, it was a combination of a lot of different things. But, you know, sleep deprivation is terrible. You know, traveling is really hard on your body. In 1997, my second son was born. And I just decided, hey, you know, I don't know if I really want to do this anymore, because I missed my first son when he was born. He was born in 1985. So, you know, I missed a lot of his really important parts of his life, you know what I mean? Because I was gone all the time. I mean, I was also able to spend a lot of time with him, but, you know, but not as much as I wanted to. And then, you know, when my second son was born, with my second wife, I you know, he was born in 97, and I toured for a while, and then it was like, hey, you know, I don't know if I really want to do this anymore. I love the guys and everything, and this is really fun. I enjoyed the music and everything, but I just felt like I wanted to hang out with my family.
Well,
And and there were some other things that happened too, but nothing. It was all pretty. It was just a few different things where I just felt like, I think I'm going to step aside and let, because those guys wanted to keep on working a whole bunch. They wanted to work more and more and more because that's where all the money is. You know what I'm saying? But I have always lived pretty frugally, and I was like, I don't really need to do this anymore. I think I can live with the lifestyle that I'm living right now, and I can just not do this anymore. So I decided that I was going to do that, and that was a big decision and a big choice. And
now,
I'm glad I did. To tell you the truth, I mean, I've had a pretty good life since I retired too.
No.
It's a completely different life, but
Right.
it's a good life. It's really good, So.
Now, how do you go in to tell the band you're breaking up? I mean, I'm divorced, so it's like when you're divorced, you have to figure this out, and you have to get your balls up and go, you know what, this isn't working anymore. But as a band member, what's that?
That's not. It wasn't fun. I'll tell you that. I mean, it was hard. I had to go to Huey. I went to Huey. I said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And of course, then they tried to talk me out of it a little bit. So I said, okay, well, I'm gonna keep going for a while. And then, so I did. I kept going for like another 6 months, and then I went, and then I went back to Huey again, and I said, you know what, I really don't think that I can do it. He goes, okay, I get it. I totally get it. So, it wasn't that bad. I mean, all the guys were great. So, but yeah, it's as nice. It doesn't matter how nice people are. That's still a very difficult thing to do. Because, when you tell somebody, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, you're sort of saying, hey, I don't want to be doing this with you.
Right.
Right? It just doesn't feel good, right? But, I didn't mean it like that. It was a personal thing for me. It wasn't, you know what I'm saying? It was a choice that I had to make for myself to feel good about my existence.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, a lot of people wouldn't have left, and if you didn't leave, you probably would have become miserable, and it would have probably damaged things.
Yeah, and there were a lot of things going on. I just, it's a lot harder to make really good choices. I had kind of discovered my Christian side, and I'm not saying that it was like debauchery that was going on, but just. The thing is, just staying up late and having a couple drinks even after a while, it's like, you might make choices that aren't so great. You might drink too much, and then you're having hangovers all the time, and then you're not sleeping, and then you might make some other stupid shit. It's like playing on the train tracks.
Right.
It's not a good idea if you don't want to get run over by a train. Right?
So now, after you leave the band, the band, what is that first year like? Because you don't understand. You had a life that people dream of. You performed, and that was your life for so long. What is it like that? I mean, how long did it take you to desensitize from someone saying, "I'm not going on stage tonight"? How long did it take you?
Oh my God, it took so long. I have to say, first of all, just getting over the sleep deprivation took me years. I had trouble sleeping for years because I just couldn't sleep through the damn night. And then now I can't sleep through the night for different reasons. But, but back then it was like, you get used to the sleep deprivation, and it's hard. It took me years to get over, it took me years to just get into a regular sleeping cycle, for one. And then number two, not having the circus, hanging out with the guys and the camaraderie and everything else. And you know what I mean? That part of it was difficult because all of a sudden, it's just me and my family and my friends and stuff. And it was a completely different life. So it was it took some getting used to. And it probably took me 4 or 5 years to sort of get to a point where I felt like I was sort of, more normal again. But strangely, even 20 years later, I still have dreams about working and playing in the band.
That's
which is bizarre,
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know why. I'm sure there's some shrink out there who might know why, but I don't. It's weird, though.
Now, did you? No, that is crazy. That's funny. But we all we always joke around. Anyone who ever waited tables in their life, they have the waiter dream where all of a sudden people just keep coming in. And I haven't waited tables for years. But you wake up, and you're like, oh my god, I just got sat 8 tables, and it makes no sense. But I think it's because it's a past part of our life. Now, did it in the beginning when you left the band? Did you miss the high from that applause, from performing, and just seeing a crowd loving you? Did you miss that at all in the beginning when you left?
Oh, yes. Yes. And anybody who says they don't miss that is a liar. Because, it's great. And, yes, I did miss it a lot. I didn't understand what it was, but looking back on it, I think that had a lot to do with it. Because it gives you a sense of purpose, and, it makes you feel you have an elevated sense of self when people are, telling you and clapping for you and yelling and telling you how great you are and everything else, And then when you don't have that, you have to find some self-esteem for yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's hard, man. But you know what? Everybody has to do that. It's just part of being human. I think that people who have that kind of notoriety are the lucky ones because they get that. Everybody else has to work for it, right?
Yeah. Now they say you missed that, but now did you not play the guitar for a while when you first left, or did you keep playing? I mean, was it something you said, I'm making a clean break?
No, I kept playing. I still play. I don't play a whole bunch now because it kind of hurts me a little bit. But I still play though. I'll play a couple times a week. I'll sit down for like a half an hour and just play as fast as I can for about a half an hour until it hurts, and then I quit.
Real quick. But when you first left the band, did you take a little time off from playing?
Yeah, a little bit, but shortly thereafter, I kind of because I had other hobbies and things that I like to do. I was at that time I was playing a lot of golf, and I was fishing a lot and stuff like that. And I just wanted to kind of hang out with family, and so I just kind of did that and did a lot of gardening. I'm way into gardening, so that's fun. All those things were fun, and that kind of but I did take a little bit of a break from playing, and then I eventually put together like a jazz combo and just kind of play around town every once in a while, just to keep my make sure I could still play, and that was fun. We didn't have any sort of notoriety of any kind. I mean, I do these gigs and maybe 20 people would show up, if that, and they didn't even come there to see me.
Right.
They just were there to get drunk. You know what I mean? So that was pretty humbling. But most of the time when people did come and they started listening to music, they were like, "Oh, that's that dude from Huey Lewis. Wow, that's pretty cool what they're doing there." And you'd see people kind of, by the end of the night, they're like, "Yeah, these guys are pretty good." Because I was playing with, I had some guys that I was playing with that were great. I mean, Tim Haggerty and Tom Hayashi and Mike Lufkin, various people, local Sonoma County people and stuff. And, it was fun.
Now,
I had a lot of fun doing that. So I enjoyed that, but I never really wanted to take it past, because having a band is like herding cats. It's really not all that much fun. Because, you always got to, everybody's got something else to do when you're not, like a professional musician. I mean, these guys were all professionals, but they were all busy doing other stuff. So it's like, oh, can you rehearse today? Well, yeah, I can do it. I can do it too. Well, yeah, I can't do it that day. And then before you know it, it's like, okay, well, I guess we're not going to rehearse for another 3 weeks, are we? Because you can't get 3 guys to be in the same place at the same time, right? I mean, it's not like I was paying them a whole bunch of money to rehearse with me. So and then it was also the thing of, well, why would I want to make a career for myself doing this when I quit the biggest, one of the biggest bands in the world, right? It defeated the purpose of what I did in 2000.
Right.
Right?
That's true. That makes so much sense. Because, so now you can look...
Yeah, I mean, why would I do that unless I might as well have just stayed in the band?
Exactly. Now, do you still keep in touch with the guys?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I talk to Huey from time to time. We talk about fishing a lot, and we talk to each other probably 5-6 times a year.
So,
and then I talked to Johnny the other day. We had a nice chat on the phone, and I talked to Bill for a couple of minutes. I haven't talked to Sean for a while, but it's been a few years, probably 3 or 4 years since I talked to Sean. But yeah, those guys are great. They're I spent so much time with those guys. It's like they're like family to me. I actually spent more time with those guys than I spent with my actual family.
Right.
Because I spent 22 years with them or whatever. With my family, I only spent 18 years with them. So.
So what's a day like now for you? Like, do you still fish a lot? Do you still golf a lot? What is a retired rock and roller? What does a retired rock and roller do? Well,
I've done a lot of different things from time to time. But now, what I'm doing, I like to fish a lot, and I'm living in Reno, and I like to fish Truckee River. That's a lot of fun. But actually, what I'm doing right now, my wife and I just adopted a dog. A rescue dog.
Okay.
And my wife was fostering dogs because we had a dog for quite a while that passed away last year, and she was pretty broken up about it, and she decided, well, I'm going to foster dogs for a while. And I was like, I don't really want a dog, so fostering dogs is great for me because I wanted a break from the dog thing. Because my kids were, my daughter I just got her into college. She's just started college in the fall. So we were empty nesters, and I'm like, shoot, I want to be able to, I don't want the responsibility of it, right? So I thought fostering is going to be great. So we've been fostering dogs, and that's fun. Fostering dogs is great, but we had a foster fail where we got the dog adopted, and then 24 hours later, the adopted people said, we don't want the dog. He went after one of our chickens. And we told him, hey, you better protect your chickens because he's probably going to go after one. He's a puppy, for crying out loud.
Right.
Chicken tastes good, right? So we ended up getting the dog back, and then my wife really liked the puppy. So we decided, I relented because it's always good to just do what your wife says.
I know. I just got married in September. I know.
Yeah. You don't go against the woman. So So I just went, yeah, you know what? I think we can do this, and I've actually come to. It's been about 2 months now, and I really enjoy having a dog again. It's great, and we're involved in dog training and all that stuff, and we've watched all of Cesar Millan's shows. It becomes sort of an obsession. I must say, how people are with their pets. It's a little wacky because I've had dogs for on and off. I had attack trained dogs and all kinds of crazy dogs, and this dog and that dog, and I enjoy dogs. But right now that's what we're doing. So that's pretty much filling up our day right now. Oh, and we did decide, since we're empty nesters now, that we're going to ski a little bit since we're down in Reno, because there's a lot of great skiing. Right up the road. So we're going to take up skiing again. And I actually, what I do most of the time, though, is I go to the gym and work out. I'm into powerlifting, not like super heavy-duty powerlifting, but more like therapeutic powerlifting. Deadlifts, squats, chest press. And so I work out a lot. I work out like 3 or 4 days a week.
That's good. I have to go to the gym.
Yeah, me too. If I don't go to the gym, I go berserk.
Okay.
So, and I think it's probably because of all those years that I spent, in front of audiences, and I got used to that dopamine hit. I gotta have some endorphins and some dopamine, otherwise I start to feel kind of crazy.
Right.
Yeah. So, and it's just like everybody else. You got to go to the gym. You got to keep moving. I'm 62 years old now. I got a bad hip. It's the hip to be square kind of came true.
Right. Well,
pretty much. Pretty much.
I want to thank you for taking the time. I'm a huge fan of Huey Lewis, and it's so funny. It was after I need a new drug. I went out and bought a red blazer after that video, and I can admit that because I was an '80s guy. I'm 56, so that was like when I was in. But it was great talking to you. Now, people, just go get those early Huey Lewis albums, and you'll listen to his guitar work, and it's awesome. And and then you can say, hey, I sort of know that guy. So people, check out Huey Lewis's, all his older albums, and you'll find Chris on them, and look him up. Look up Chris, and also look me up on Twitter. I'm at Cooper Talk. Website coopertalk.net. You can find over 770 episodes. Email me, Cooper@coopertalk.net. And Instagram is CooperTalk1. So remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guests. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you guys next time.